It's been another day of intense fighting between Israel and Hamas amid heart-wrenching scenes of the mass exodus of Palestinians trying to survive the violence. They're heading to the south, where for weeks Israel has said they would be safe. But Israeli bombs continue to fall in those areas too, making no place truly safe in Gaza. And the only way out of the enclave was closed today. The Rafah border crossing into Egypt shut down due to a security problem. They're getting out however they can, by horse and buggy, on foot, carrying whatever possessions they have left. A long line of human suffering winding from north to south, traversing the rubble and remains of the Gaza Strip amid the constant threat of death. The Israeli military saying 50,000 used the road to leave Gaza City today alone.
There is no safe place in Gaza. We are 7 families. All of our houses are gone. Nothing is left.
Children were very tired because there was no water. People were dying, and there were elderly who couldn't walk.
We came from Al-Shifa, and we saw death on the way. Dead bodies, destructions all over the way. Tanks were calling people.
This is some of the fighting they're escaping. The Israeli ground offensive near the Al-Shadi refugee camp in Gaza City. The sounds of explosions near constant as people head for the escape corridor opened by the Israeli military for 5 hours today. Journalists embedded with the Israeli Defense Forces were taken to a building that soldiers say contained a militant workshop for weapons, now destroyed.
I was one of the first soldiers that came in this neighborhood. And yes, when we came in, we weren't shooting when we just came in. We were getting shot at. They were shooting at us, so we had to shoot back to protect our lives. I'll tell you something. The Israeli army is here to protect innocent people.
כיצד 50,000 עזתים?
This Israeli military spokesman says Hamas has lost control of the north. As the Al-Qassam brigades release new video showing what they say is close combat with Israel.
When one looks at the number of civilians that were killed with the military operations, there is something that is clearly wrong.
In an interview with Reuters today, the UN Secretary General was critical of the widespread civilian deaths being caused by the Israeli military operation in Gaza.
Every year, the highest number of killing of children by any of the actors in all the conflicts that we witness is the maximum in the hundreds. We have, in a few days in Gaza, thousands and thousands of children killed.
Israel is under pressure from the U.S. to enact a humanitarian pause to relieve some of the Palestinians' suffering. 2 top Israeli journalists saying Israel's promise to eradicate Hamas entirely may not be achievable if that U.S. pressure becomes too strong. The Israeli military has warned routing out Hamas and destroying its tunnel system will be a long process.
The 2 clocks, one of how long will it take the IDF to finish what they see as their target, and second, how long are the international community, and specifically the US, would tolerate the continuation of this ground offensive. Those two are not in sync.
I am afraid that the United States will succeed in stopping us from completing the work.
Those calling for an immediate ceasefire have an obligation to explain how to address the unacceptable result it would likely bring about.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken again rejecting calls for a ceasefire at the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Japan, but calling for a humanitarian pause along with other Western leaders.
Canadians are hurting and crying out that it needs to stop. This is why we are calling for a humanitarian pause.
Global Affairs Canada says a total of 75 Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and their families have gotten out of Gaza, out of about 600 total. No foreign nationals or injured Palestinians got out today because the Rafah border crossing into Egypt was closed due to what was called a security circumstance.